Welcome to another episode of the Solopreneur Billionaire. Today, multipreneur and author Shannon Pu and I talk about our creative process and how COVID and AI fueled books for us. I hope you find the discussion fun and engaging. Hold on, I'm just trying to block my note taker. You know how sometimes you get so nutty with note takers?
I trust my own note taking better.
I use note takers because I like to take the transcript and dump it into ChatGPT and say, "Hey, what did I miss? What were the most interesting things you saw?" Just like you would have in talking with somebody after a meeting. What do you think that meeting was about? I do that with ChatGPT.
That's a smart strategy.
Always thinking. Thank you for taking the time with me. I'm doing market research for a YouTube channel that is targeting women in their 50s that have spent decades building expertise and want to turn that into something in their next stage, which is either a book, thought leadership, podcast, advisory business, or board seats because they work pretty high pressure day jobs, because life and family is also fairly high pressure. It's hard to get from that very highly structured, highly intense life that they lead to have the bandwidth and time to think about that next phase. For some of them, that next phase happens either because they've decided the rat race is no longer what they want, or they get let go and they've gone from intense structure to nothing. I want to help people get from here to here.
I can totally relate. Right now, I define myself as a media person. I run two companies focusing on public relations and influencer relations. We help our clients on all their media programs. Our clients are multinational technology or energy companies. But just like you said, apart from working, right, we want to build some influence. So I wrote and published 3 books. I also run a podcast as well as YouTube. But both of them are actually not very successful because, to become a very famous or successful YouTube, you need to spend a tons of time and you better have a whole team. So I agree with you that is not very easy. On one hand, my business is public relations. I already have to spend a lot of energy and time working with my clients. On the other side, I'm using another different brand for writing books or, creating influence. This sort of program, you have to be more focused on yourself. That's why I agree with you that this is very hard, especially if you want to build something during your prime time.
What are the biggest barriers for you? Because clearly you're doing both.
For me, it's time. There's never enough time. We are wearing a lot of hats because apart from the business, I also have 2 kids. When I published my first book, my son was just like 1 year old or 2 years old. So it's really not easy. During COVID, I forget whether in the US you guys required quarantine. Whenever you fly back to Taiwan, we need to stay in a hotel. I was actually very grateful for that period of time. Without these policies, I won't be able to finish my second and third book. Don't tell my son.
You have your day job, and then you have the podcast and the YouTube channel that you're building. How do you think about integrating those things?
I'm running 2 business
Yeah.
and I have 2 kids. I'm the kind of person who is always interested in everything that's fun, that's interesting, and
Yeah.
that's new. So I made myself very busy. I don't get a lot of sleep. I do see there's a big challenge of that because we only have like 24 hours a day. Of course, you can hire someone to help you, but when you are doing a book or planning for a program, you are always the master. It takes a lot of focus and energy and time.
Especially when you're creating a book, a podcast, or YouTube channel, so much of is about you. And it's not so easy to transmit that so that the voice is authentic, so that it sounds real.
There's a saying in Chinese that if you decide to outsource everything to a third party, Your project will be lack of soul.
You were saying that because of AI, many things are now open to us, particularly women who have multiple jobs in addition to the one that we are paid for in our direct family, in the broader family with our parents, in our community.
Because back then there was no the AI tools.
Yeah.
Whatever you want to do, you need to build it from all by yourself. But now the help of ChatGPT or other AI tools, I do see there's a great opportunity for women or executives like us to having everything we want. But the challenge is maybe most people are still not so familiar, right? We know how to use ChatGPT to make our writings better, but not everybody can more better at working with ChatGPT to create something. I do see great opportunities for executives, especially female executives, to be having a better quality of life. If you want to create something deeper, it takes a lot more training as well as the experience, or maybe even the courage.
Do you mind telling me some of the things that you've discovered? We can't make more time, but we can make the time more effective.
One of the biggest challenge for launching new program is that sometimes we run out of ideas, but with AI can be great brainstorming partners. AI never feels hard. For example, if I am required to do some topics, but I feel it's very hard because I have another thousand things to do, I naturally will postpone it. If you give this difficult question, difficult topic to AI, it will it won't have this psychological face. You will
Right.
just go ahead and tackle the problem. Sometimes the answers from AI are not the best answer,
Often
but
they're terrible in the first pass.
at least it tried. And at least from the bad answers, it will encourage better answers.
For me, I was able to write 5 books last year with AI. It has opened many doors in my creative brain, but it also has been a door opener in terms of my business because people are always curious as to how did you write a book with AI? In July, I wrote my first book and I had this challenge of writing it in 72 hours. I wanted to really figure out how AI worked. And because I had 2 speaking engagements AI the following week, so I only had a limited amount of time. So I broke down how do you create a book, not write a book, because like you, I have this idea that I'm a good writer and that I have a lot of stories to tell. All the other things around producing a book take more time than I had. So the outline, the narrative arc, my ideal audience. I had a development editor. I created a custom GPTs. I created a book in 72 hours, had it up on Kindle 3 hours after finishing it.
I really admire you for that. I was at your speech in
Yes.
UCLA.
Yes. The great thing is that once you have that process down, you can do it over and over again. I can do it very quickly now. I have the time to put my story and my soul into the books. There's no way that ChatGPT or Claude ever knows me as well as I know me. The stories become richer as a result of having all the nonsense that I don't like to do done. I can really focus in on what I want to write about.
How do you decide what topics to write about and also identify the right target audience?
The first book, I happened to be talking to a client. He worked for a big consulting company who shall remain nameless that didn't at the time allow their employees to use AI. So he understood intellectually what AI was, but he had never used it. He said, "Is there a book I could read?" I was thinking, why would anybody want to read a book about AI? And I thought, I'm going to write a book for the types of people who want a book to learn about AI. When I was writing the book, we would have conversations, the chat GPT version of him. I would say things like, how would you grade this? Is this clear for you? Have you heard this before? What makes it more insightful? That became a richer book. It forced an outside in thinking that we often forget about. In my next books about AI disruption, my avatar was a C suite executive who had quarterly pressures, every day was talking about AI and technology, but when in the corner of their mind, they were thinking, I don't know enough about this to make great decisions. I got to meet the quarter. And we're already doing a lot of outsourcing to AI. So I was talking to that C suite avatar, and AI is a future problem as opposed to a today problem, which is I must make the quarter. I had to find authors that were really great at making people see the future. I had AI give me analysis of why Jeffrey Moore, Clayton Christensen, and writers like that were so effective at talking about things that we hadn't experienced yet. And what were the patterns of the way that they wrote their arguments in books I needed to replicate in Unstoppable Advantage, which is about companies that like Microsoft and NVIDIA that take advantage of disruptive times, as well as the adapt framework, the step-by-step framework for how you build the ability to be resilient in the face of disruption, specifically AI.
I'm also very curious about your business.
The people that I work with are thinking about the dreams of their life, the knowledge and expertise. They want to use it into the future, whether it is the next big job, consultancy, writing a book, but that lives in their head as a dream. As you point out, there's so much that we don't have time for. We're triple booked every single day. The phone is constantly going off with alerts where people need us to do this, that, or the other thing. We also talked about the fact you always do the thing that is the easiest and most present first, and sort of thinking about your future life, even if that is the dream of your life, is hard to get to. It's very hard to break down that idea into the tactics because then what happens for most of us is I don't know enough. I have to figure out how to set up the corporation or the LLC or the bookkeeper or the CRM. I don't have time to figure all that out, much less even think about my business idea. The third blocker that happens is when you are in a corporation, there's so much infrastructure around you that work and clients and sales comes to you. And most women I talk to say, I don't want to sell. I don't feel comfortable selling because they have this impression of the used car salesman that they don't like.
Yeah.
What every good salesperson will tell you that it's about relationship. Most women that I know are supreme relationship people. If they think of themselves as being of service to someone, then it becomes a much easier bridge to go from I'm not comfortable selling to I've got something that is really great to offer and is of value and should be paid for. What I try to do in developing programs in my LinkedIn posting and in my podcast on YouTube is tell those stories and help people get from I wish and I want to okay, now I will. That I break down all of those hurdles and barriers into bite-sized chunks of 10-minute increments or less where I can brush my teeth and think about this, and that'll move me forward a little bit.
That's really something great that you are doing. You help successful women to not only doing their everyday work, but to focus on something important but not as urgent.
The women that I am attracted to, like you, are ones that think about life in a bigger term than just our immediate circle. And we want to have impact that is bigger than our day to day job. We really want to have an impact on the world that we live in. How do I enable that and make it accessible in a way that we couldn't have done before without AI? Well, thank you so much for your time. I really, really appreciate it. And I'm looking forward to having coffee with you in not 2D. I'll send an invite with the Starbucks.
Okay, great.
See you later. Thank you so much for listening to this episode about Shannon and me just trying to have it all like we do and using AI to kick down the doors of possibility. I appreciate your being here. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next episode.